These ideas we're talking about are not difficult. It isn't difficult. It isn't complicated. This whole study of truth is not an intellectual matter at all. You see, being is already being. Being is all already. Okay, from whence then does the complication arise? Where in the allness of all can come forth this idea, I don't understand. I can't get the hang of it. I haven't made my demonstration yet. I'm not smart enough. I seem to be very near a breakthrough. Oh, how many times I've heard that. But there is just some little bit more to be understood. Well, listen to me now. Self-discovery is going on right now. Actually, self-comprehension, self-discovery is all that's going on. Now, how could this be so? Well, if we start at the beginning with God, if we start at the top with allness, the very awareness right now, listening to these words, is God awareness and not a personally possessed awareness. Which brings to mind all of the movies about possession and the occult that we are seeing at the moment. Well, the only possession possible, in fact, is the belief that a personality possesses this very God awareness of being. And how quickly this exorcises that little devilish nobody. So, back to what we were talking about. Right now, self-observation, self-discovery, self-comprehension, self-understanding is all that's going on. Right here, right now, plus a big heavy rain. It is wetting everything real good outside. And I tell you, it's God's self-awareness listening to these words, and not a person, not a personality. So it isn't a difficult thing, this thing of self-discovery. It isn't difficult. It's going on all the time. It's happening whether there is an intellectual awareness of it or not. It's a fact whether one is even interested or not. The world calls it learning. But top down, starting with God, the word is not learning, it's self-comprehension. And it's effortless. Oh, now, the human sense of self, bottom-upping, starting with the problem, starting with the body, and trying to solve it, trying to heal it, to that, it is a severe intellectual task, requiring the line upon line building up of an edifice, a learning edifice, to support every conclusion until something comes along to rip the understructure apart. And what do? We have to start all over with another intellectual target, another attack, another attempt to climb up to the summit of wisdom. But top down, awareness comprehends the effortlessness of the so-called learning process. It's happening at every minute, no matter what one thinks he's doing. It's happening whether we are open and study metaphysical books or not. It's happening whether we're meditating or playing a game of tennis, whether we're sitting quietly in the garden or poring over our ledgers. Self-comprehension, so acknowledged, learning, renamed and understood as self-comprehension going on, and so acknowledged, allows an immediate relief from all of the old struggles, the old learning struggles, the old struggles of stupidity, the old struggles of not having enough intelligence. It allows an immediate relief from all of that, and from the old struggles to get up to perfection. Self-comprehension is already at perfection, viewing perfection, living quite perfectly no matter what label has been put on it. Now, do you see this? Relax just a little now and let yourself just be the comprehension of this gentle, honest, simple, childlike fact of being. Because it's going on right now. It's happening. Well, I've been asked what I meant by top-down. Top-down thinking as opposed to bottom-up thinking. I've explained it so many times, but let me try it this way. Top-down means starting the mental, intellectual process from the intellectual premise that God is all in all. You see, any thinking that is done in words, any talking that's done in words, is an intellectual process. All right, and we can't get rid of the intellectual process. The intellect is as much a part of awareness as is the heart. So when I have reference to top-down, I mean that we start our mental thinking processes, that the intellectual processes of weighing and measuring things, but from the premise that God is all in all. That God is all. This is the premise from which it begins, and not the pantheistic position which says all things are God. This isn't to be confused with pantheism. Rather, it's the panentheistic position. The panentheistic position which acknowledges that isness, or God, is being all that is. I can tell you this, that top-down gets to be a very natural thing. It doesn't require reminders every minute that I must begin with God, or any such thing as that. One begins to survey the scene. One just looks about, and whatever should present itself for question or examination is surveyed very naturally as God awareness making the observation from the standpoint of perfection. One might say, well, now just how does this particular picture fit perfection seen? We look out across the way, and there alongside the road is the body of a little dog that's been struck, perhaps. Just how does this fit perfection seen? You see, looking at the same sight from the old bottom-up standpoint, one hears himself saying, oh, Lordy, Lordy, what are my children going to think when they see that their little puppy is gone? What terrible effect is that going to have on my experience? And who is this me who is saying my on this last situation? It is that old pseudo-identity who claims to be the owner, the possessor of life. Invariably, that Pecksniffian poltroon, how about that, to whom we yield awareness to serve. So long as conscious awareness remains the tool of a master like that, of that lifeless master, that spoof and foos figment of the imagination, just so long does awareness continue to see more and more sights that must ultimately expose the nothingness of the possessor. Let me say that again. The possessor's conscious experience becomes ever more and more unbearable until it's found out and understood, until the possessor is found out and understood for the purpose that such a spurious one serves in the first place. Now, is that clear? I see all kinds of smiles, so let's pause and consider that a little bit. The theme that did very well in California this last trip, the theme had to do with returning to the beginning. I'm sure all of you here have heard that statement many times. I finally found the vehicle to carry the message in the simple little illustration of awakening each day as awareness. And until one assumed the awakened conscious awareness belonged to himself or to someone else, until that time, awareness was just going on about the business of being aware. It wasn't until one felt within himself and thought within himself, this is my awareness, my life, my thought for the morning, my plans for the day, my this and that and so forth, that the thing that we've grown to call mortal mind was born. You see, every thought that stems from the predicate, this is my mind, listening to these words, this is me sitting here who is trying to learn something, is the thinking of what has been called the carnal mind. And it is the product of an assumed ego, an assumed identity on the scene. But, you know, when this is recognized, we see at the same time, we come to comprehend that the belief in that pseudo-ego, the misidentification, the belief in it is quite natural. And it's perfectly all right for a time and good. It should be that way. Otherwise, one would never understand beyond intellectualism exactly what egolessness or the divine identity is. I had a phone call not so long ago from one who wanted to know if there was a rite of exorcism. A rite, R-I-T-E, of exorcism. And, well, there is no rite, R-I-G-H-T, there's no rite for such an event since there is no real possession. There isn't any such thing as a real possession. There is the belief of possession, however. And that belief, when it's boiled down to its most basic presentation, is the belief that this life, right here, right now, belongs to a me. You know, the me is the possessor. Life is the supposed possessed. But the me is hypothetical. The me is the false identification that makes the real identification known and understood. The possessed, if it were possible, the possessed would be life, awareness, the consciousness of these very words. And this cannot be put into another, nor can another be put into it, because there is no other. There is only the one. There is God only, God mind, and not another mind to take charge of it or possess it. We don't deny there are appearances that indicate people are sometimes filled with an alien spirit that has them appearing to act in ways that are strange and foreign, unnatural, and so forth. Anger, it seems, can take one over, cause actions that it wouldn't be thought of otherwise. Jealousy certainly causes people to act as if they were possessed either of something or by someone. But what are all these appearings that we're talking about? But images included within awareness, and every image within awareness is a note of the symphony, leading directly or indirectly to the symphony itself. Possession, therefore, is the delineation of identity, which is all in all, existing alone. Allness has nothing outside itself by means of which it can possess or become possessed. Period. Well, I said period, but I've got something else to say about it. The primary one to be exorcised, the primary one to get rid of or to be exorcised, is that pseudo one who says, my life, my awareness. You see, such an identity is purely fictional, serving to define the non-fictional real. Well, how does this fit into the statement about supply? That is, how does the top-down, beginning with God, concept of this awareness is the functioning of the divine mind, and isn't the possession, you see, of Bill or Rachel or Jeffrey Snagbottom or somebody? Well, how does this concept serve to say anything about the matter of supply? Well, listen now. Listen gently. Top down, God doesn't need anything that God isn't being. Also, God is all that is, and needs that all that is in the same way the finished symphony needs each chord that constitutes its own being. So, viewed top down, nothing can be given, nothing taken away. Top down awareness. This very awareness, right here, right now, listening to these words, is the functioning of God mind. God mind and its functioning are one God mind. Now, no two-ness here. Mind and its functioning are one mind. Even if separation were possible, each mind and its functioning would be seen to be the supplied fulfillment of the other. That is, you see, mind isn't mind if it isn't aware, and awareness is nothing without mind. Supply now, as seen from this top-down position, is natural and normal. It is going on every moment. It's already happening, and it's incapable of limitation, it's incapable of lack, and it is not capable of any kind of manipulation. All right, now, continuing top-down, remember Lao Tzu says to start at the beginning, and first there's one, then there's two, then there's three, and the wise man knows when to stop. All right, we'll know when to stop. We haven't stopped yet. All of a sudden the body appears when one looks into a mirror. We began at the top, and we started with consciousness, and then awareness, and now of what awareness is aware of, and we look in the mirror, and lo and behold, there's a body. Well, the mirror and the body appearing therein, or thereout, or anywhere, is ever noted within awareness, not outside it. Therefore, awareness, consciousness is the substance of body form. And as such, that form lives and moves and has its being without fear of want, without lack, without something depriving it of whatever is necessary for form to be form. We note that it isn't until the preposition is introduced that awareness belongs to a body form. Seen in the lake's reflection or in the mirror, that there is a consciousness that the body form is good or bad. I'll say that again. It isn't until we introduce the possibility that the awareness that sees the body form in the mirror or in the lake belongs to a me, that there is any kind of a me decision that would say, oh, I don't like the way that body looks. A me decision that says that is a form that I don't like. And that me is a pseudo-possessor of awareness. And it's that one that does all the liking and disliking, the wanting, the needing, desiring, lusting after the goodness, chewing the bad. Judgment doesn't enter the scene until the possessor is acknowledged as real, until one takes the liar to be identity. In one of the Han stories, at this point, the old master is asked by one of his students. He says, oh, but dear Han, the one and only identity is being everything, as you've taught us. So therefore, that one must also be the sum and substance of the liar also. Isn't that so? And Han answers, yes, you have it straight. But wisdom is not fooled by the fantasy, is it? And then the student puzzles for a moment and says, but is wisdom not being fooled when I stand before the mirror and play the part of a fool? And Han answers, whether you play the fool or not, are you fooled by your own shadow? And whether you play the fool or not, can your shadow harm you? We awaken in the morning, it seems. And awareness is aware. Awareness is about the business of perceiving. God awareness. Not a Bill awareness or a Mary awareness or a Jane awareness. Just awareness is being aware. Now, awareness, it is the same awareness. If we look in the mirror and say, aha, this is my awareness of being, I am the owner, the custodian of this awareness. Well, now, it is the same awareness whether we do that last or not. But we don't have to become and play the part of the ego possessor of awareness. We can just be awareness. Now, we go on through the day just like we've always done. It doesn't change anything in particular. But oh, how different it is to see that since all things appear within awareness, and awareness is the substance of all things, that identity is just as big as the scene is, and how much different it is to go through the day with the entire scene, one's identity, and not just that little bag of bones called Bill or Jan or something else. Now, granted, that little bag of bones will still be there. It still appears to walk around and be a part of the scene, but for good reason. We can see that awareness has, in essence, been identity from the word go. And that to limit identity to the size of a bag of bones and give it a time when it was born, and worry about a time when the bag of bones is going to die, is to ignore the infinity that awareness is being. Now, the comprehension of a subtle viewpoint like this appears to require much repetition. The same ideas presented from many angles, softly or vigorously or shockingly or directly, as we're doing it right here, sometimes obtusely and sometimes even obversely. Without question, subtle viewpoints are perceived often from out of our frustration and from out of the humility of helplessness. Whatever leads us to the heartfelt comprehension of light also leads us to the repugnant emptiness of this ego shell, this concept of this is my life, my awareness, that we've all, for good reason, been encrusted by, as appearances go, a shell to be seen for what it is and forsaken. It is the very contradistinguishing nature of human living that allows for the delineation of divine being in exactly the same way that darkness is the means by which light is delineated. Were we all right here, right now, chickens in an incubator, having been bathed forever in the light of an incubator, would we know what light is and know it, infinitely know it, beyond all intellectualism, until somebody pulled the plug and for a moment is not light, or light's contradistinction called darkness became apparent? At that moment, light and what light is would be known by even those who didn't even care about it, didn't even want to know about it, wouldn't acknowledge the existence of it. Suddenly wisdom reigned upon the just and the unjust in that moment of darkness. And so it is that our humanhood is the means by which the divinity that is real is made plain. And those two are a single one. A single one. The tree and its shadow are one tree, but it's the tree that has power and authority and love. This will conclude our session for this morning, and I thank you all very much for your attention.